Good morning and welcome. Now, if you are a farmer or an agricultural business and you operate as a limited company, there may well be the opportunity for you to access research and development tax relief. So we have put on this virtual session today to discuss purely this topic and how R&D tax credits relate to farmers and agricultural businesses. And our experts we have here today will explore examples of claims and eligibility so that you can fully understand whether your business qualifies to take advantage of this government initiative. So, Old Mill have a team of R&D specialists, and I'm delighted to have two of them with us today, which you should see on the side of your screen now. Hello, Catherine. Hello, Aisha.
Hi.
Hi, Ben.
Hello. Good morning. Let's just go through the format of this session. So we'll do an introduction and I'll speak a bit more about with Catherine and with Aisha. We'll then do an explanation of what R&D is and how it relates to the agricultural industry. We will then go through the eligibility criteria to see if you are eligible for R&D tax credits, and then we can go through the processing of claims and what you might expect if you claim for a tax relief. Then at the end, we will just talk about what you should do now if you think you might be able to qualify. So, good morning, Catherine, Aisha. Thank you very much for coming on to the session today. It's very nice to have you both. Catherine, we've had quite a few sessions now, haven't we, on different topics. Aisha, this is your first time onto one of these videos. So,
yep.
And hopefully it's not me too much of a stress for you. I worked with you before, and I know that it's great for us to have you onto the show to impart your wisdom.
Thank you.
Indeed. So, Catherine, first of all, I'll start with you. Would you like to introduce yourself and just what the background is and your sort of specialism in R&D and particularly the agricultural side?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Catherine Vickery. I'm one of the tax specialists within Old Mill and been with Old Mill for 14 years now. I am from a farming background, which gives me a lot of assistance when I'm talking to clients about their projects that they're working on, their scientific projects and the testing they're doing. On top of that, many years ago now, I did actually have an applied biology degree where I studied a lot of genetics and crop science as well. So I've got a lot of scientific knowledge in that area as well. I've been doing R&D claims on and off for about 10 years. This is nothing new, but certainly in the agricultural area, this is something that is really coming to the fore now.
Okay. Yeah, I know you're agricultural through, aren't you, Catherine? So it's great to have you on today, particularly when I think most of the attendees which are on the session are all have limited agricultural companies. So see if we can help them out to demystify research and development. Aisha, you're particularly interested in research and development, and I think you've been doing it with Old Mill for a couple of years now.
Yeah, so I've been with Old Mill for about 7 years in total now. I actually started out as an accountant before moving across to tax. So I specialise in corporation tax, mainly on the kind of R&D side of things, which I've probably been doing about 3 years now, I'd say. So I've got AAT qualified and ATT qualified as well. Yeah, so really been focusing on R&D a lot for the last kind of 3 years.
And why is that then, Aisha? Is R&D one of those areas which isn't necessarily looked at by companies, or is in the corporate field, not necessarily in farming?
Yeah, I think it can often kind of be forgotten by the businesses that aren't in labs, to use the kind of generic phrase. Yeah. You know, a lot of farmers will think that they're not doing R&D, they just think they're kind of doing good farming practice, but that isn't the case at all. Yeah, so I think it's just important to raise awareness to all companies, because R&D can happen in all sectors, so it's really important to explore it.
Okay, thanks. So just before we kick off, I would say that this session is being recorded, and I will edit it once we've finished and put it up onto the Old Mill website, along with some timelines of questions that are being asked, so that if you don't have time, I know farmers obviously are always very busy and you get called away. So if you don't have time to listen live to the whole session, then by all means jump back onto our website and it should be up there probably on Monday. As I said, this is being recorded and we can do it like that. I wanted to start really with regards to an explanation of what research and development is, particularly for those that, as you were saying, Aisha, think it's not relevant to them. And actually, as a farming industry, I think we are more progressive than we actually realise. And maybe, Catherine, you can start off with this and just explain exactly what research and development is for those in layman's terms. Just assume I know nothing, and which is probably the case.
Oh, not at all, Ben, not at all. You do yourself down. I mean, research and development at its very heart is looking at what you're doing to resolve a technological or scientific uncertainty within your business. And that's one of the core principles that we're always looking for when we're looking at research and development. As Aisha said, it doesn't have to be in a lab. I think there's this misconception that you can't be doing research and development because you're just going out doing your normal farming. You might be trialing a few different things, but there's no big lab set up. There's not any scientific advisors coming in giving you lots of advice on stuff. That is such a popular misconception in reality. And I know that certainly in the industry, so many farmers are actually carrying out R&D. They just potentially don't know it. Because I don't think there is a farmer anywhere who isn't constantly doing something slightly different to try and increase yields or enhance their farming practice in some way, whether that might be soil health, milk yields, crop yields, whatever it is. And the reality is that it's been there for many years. And the purpose of it is to encourage businesses to really push the boundaries, try and improve stuff. It's the government's way of saying, if you're willing to take some risks financially, incur some costs doing research to push the boundaries of science, technology, and those businesses in this country, we're happy to help support that and share some of that financial risk with you. And that is what research and development tax credits are all about.
And I just the numbers game, I guess. What can you expect to claim from the government if you do put a claim in?
So most companies will be eligible under the small medium enterprise scheme, which results in an additional 25% tax saving on top of the 19%. So it's actually a total of 44%. So it's fairly generous and well worth doing.
Wow, yeah. So what, 44 pence in the pound?
Yeah.
Good job then. Catherine, why are we looking at this now, particularly for farmers?
Particularly for farmers, I mean, it's become very topical, and over the years they've made the reliefs more generous, and so I think it has become more topical. As a result of the reliefs becoming more generous, there are actually a lot of sort of boutique firms popping up who are putting in claims for people, and that is really kind of raising awareness to everybody, to all businesses, that these claims are available. But I think one concern that I do have, as a result of there being that much more activity in the industry, I am concerned that it's going to come under more scrutiny from HMRC. And potentially they may start to look to restrict the reliefs in some way if they find that those reliefs are being exploited to a greater degree than they thought. So I think now is a good time to really be getting in. You can go back up to 2 years and make retrospective claims. And so that's really important. We can actually go back and make those claims, and then ongoing we can do them on an annual basis. But you can go back 2 years if you've been undertaking sort of research and development projects.
Can I just add to that, Catherine, with another reason to do them now is obviously COVID and everything that's brought for everybody, so much uncertainty and cash flow issues as well. So R&D can be a really useful tool to kind of get some cash in at a time where it's really needed. Yeah,
agreed. If farmers can find some other source of help through this, then yeah, certainly why not? And I know particularly the agricultural industry for R&D claims is underclaimed. I think from doing the research, there's lots of farmers out there that don't know that they could potentially claim, and hopefully putting on sessions like this can try and sort of showcase what actually you can claim for. Maybe we'll come on to that in a moment. Aisha, just one of the questions we had sort of put in beforehand was, what are there core tests that development needs to satisfy in order to start thinking about claims and tax credits? Are the key principles of having a valid claim? What are these core tests we're looking at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to kind of reiterate part of what Catherine said, R&D is available from the government to reward innovation. R&D can manifest itself in many forms. It might be the creation of a new product. It could be the adaptation or improvement of an existing product even, or it could be copying an existing product in a different way, or it could just be gaining new knowledge. So yeah, there are plenty of ways that you can be doing R&D, and as Catherine mentioned, you need to be looking for an advance in science or technology, and you also need to have a technological or scientific uncertainty as well. So you need to be not quite sure how to actually undertake it, what's going to work, whether it's actually feasible or not. You might have an idea, but you're not quite sure. And another important point is the solution needs to not be public knowledge. So other competitors might be working on the same advance, but they're obviously not going to tell you how they're doing it because it's a trade secret. They're not just going to go telling everybody how to achieve that. Yeah, so they're kind of the really important things to look out for. What isn't R&D therefore is routine fault fixing, kind of tweaking existing products, or just copying an existing product without kind of achieving an advance in any way, or just applying off-the-shelf solutions in the way that they're intended. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, Catherine, can you relate that a bit to the farming industry with a couple of examples of what routine it is or what it isn't?
Absolutely, and we're seeing so many different areas coming to the fore at the moment, and one big thing that we are seeing is where nicotinoids have been, the use of nicotinoids have been abolished for oilseed rape in particular. Yeah. It means that people are really struggling to grow a good crop of oilseed rape because of the flea beetle is attacking the crop, and they're struggling to get the crop successfully through to a good harvest. Now, there's lots of people now, different farmers all over the country, who are trialling lots of different methods as to how to do this, whether it's applying different sprays, whether it's companion cropping. There's lots of different things that people are looking at to try and deal with this problem. So the regulatory issues are therefore driving this change, but some of our clients are looking at this, other farmers in the industry are all going through and having exactly the same problems, and potentially trying to fix it all in different ways and trialing stuff. The fact that we've got lots of people trying to solve that issue at the same time doesn't preclude anyone from making a claim. It doesn't matter that John over in Hampshire is trialling one thing, and it might be that Ted in Dorset is maybe trialing the same thing, trialing something slightly different. Doesn't matter. They're all very uncertain as to how to resolve it, and they're all looking at putting in research and development claims now. Another example that we have, it would be looking at sort of soil health. Soil health has become very topical, looking at making sure you're not leaving ground bare potentially, and so the use of cover crops, and looking at, you know, what would be the best cover crops, what's the best way to deal with them, and getting sort of nutrition back into the soil. There's a lot of trials on that right now. Also sort of, you know, undersowing other crops and the best way to do that, that's quite topical. We're seeing a lot of that going on, and claims being made on that basis. It's anyone who is trialing something slightly different. And you know, it's interesting. There's particularly in livestock, anything to do with nutrition, where you're trialing something a bit different. I know we've been talking to a lot of poultry farmers who test different additives to the water, different additives to feed, spraying bits of stuff in the sheds, and there's this constant evolving process of trying to always maximize yields, maximize health, and I think reduced use of antibiotics is playing a big part, because whereas historically you may have been very heavily reliant on antibiotics, we're now looking at reducing their use as much as possible and finding other ways to enhance animal health. So all of those sorts of things where you're trialing something that isn't a known out there, is potentially research and development, and it's looking at what costs you can attribute to that to pull together a claim.
And on the feed and nutrition side as well, there could be R&D if a nutritionist couldn't come along and just give you an answer, and also you're trying to measure something, be it productivity or maybe quality of the end product, just to add.
Are you allowed to work with the nutritionist to find that answer though? Do you have to be a competent professional to be able to do this research and development, or can Stanley down the road just go, I'll be able to do that, I won't need my professional nutritionist help, etc.?
Yeah, so for it to be your R&D, HMRC will expect you to be competent in the area that you're trying to achieve the advance. So you could have the nutritionist as a subcontractor if you yourself could undertake quite a lot of the work, and then maybe you say to them, I want to trial this and this, can you just action this for me, rather than just saying, this is what I want to achieve, can you go and find something that does that, please, hands off type thing. So yeah, it really depends on the amount of involvement, and it can be quite a complex area, but yeah, that's kind of the basic rule.
The director's got some involvement in it. Catherine, go on.
A collaborative approach is seen as very acceptable by HMRC. It's where you're effectively handing those decisions on to some other specialist, that it's not seen as quite so in line with what tax credits are all about.
What about adaptation of machinery then? We see that a lot in the farming industry. Somebody's welded something onto something else. I mean, obviously there must be a limit to what you can do with regards to research, or claim with regards to research and development. Have you had any examples of people adapting machinery that has worked, or is it generally, yeah, you can't do that on the bucket of your tractor?
I mean, we have seen some clients. I've got one client who is adapting a drill to do some of the testing that he's looking at, and you know, it very much depends on what, if you're doing it to some capital item, so the drill would be a capital item, what that piece of capital, that bit of kit is being used for. If you then go on and use that piece of kit in your main production of the product that you then go on to sell, then it's unlikely that you're going to be able to have any of the costs on that. Now, you know, there's a difference as well behind whether you're spending money on a capital asset compared to a consumable that is going to be used up. If it's being used purely in the R&D process, so if you're building a prototype or something like that, and you're testing and changing that prototype all the time to test how it works, then potentially that is R&D there. Whereas if it's you're just designing something and testing and trialing it for use in your production, then potentially there's no claim there. But it's that difference between the capital asset, where we don't get these really enhanced reliefs, but we can get an advance for capital allowances purposes instead. Aisha, I don't know if you've got anything further to add on that.
Yeah, so I think if we kind of take the drill example, so say they're adapting the drill to do something that it wasn't designed to do, that will be one element of the R&D, and any kind of pieces of kit that they're going to trial on that drill that actually don't work and they scrap, they can have that element of it because it's not going towards the final product. And also any labour costs, subcontractor costs that went into adapting that drill up until the point that actually they found something that worked and there's no uncertainty anymore. And then you'd have the second element of the project would be actually using that drill in another R&D project, and then you could look at R&D capital allowances on that, and you'd apportion it on the basis of how much you're going to use it for R&D. So it might be 50% of the time it's going to be used for R&D, so we can claim a 50% on that.
We did have just a question on example come in. Artificial insemination, so sex semen, is that something that is qualifies if you're looking into that?
I mean, artificial insemination and sex semen is actually technology that has been around for some time now. Originally, when it was first being looked at and developed, that would have been very much R&D, and no doubt there would have been R&D claims on that basis. However, it's a proven technology, and so I don't think those as standalones will qualify for research and development any longer. However, it might be that you're using those techniques as part of a breeding program that may well be research and development. I know that, depending on what you've been doing, it could be, for example, there's a lot of people that are using Jersey crosses in their dairy herd. And whether you've crossed with a Holstein or a Friesian to get better qualities coming through in your milk, if you have those cows in your herd, what do you then cross those with to bring in the next generation? And it's particularly looking at the genetics, looking at the qualities that you want to bring into your herd. And if that is something new that is being done and you're not quite sure how the genetic crosses are going to work, whether you're going to get an animal that has the qualities that you want or produces the milk that you want, you've got that technological or scientific uncertainty, and that is something potentially that you could claim research and development on. Now, particularly one thing that I would stress is that your research and development doesn't have to have a successful outcome to be able to claim any costs towards it. If anything, having some failures really does demonstrate that you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And any costs that you find going into products that if you can't harvest it, or if the milk yield is so poor or something like that, that you go, right, well, we'll ditch that as a plan, we'll move on to something else. That really demonstrates that you were right at the cutting edge. You really were trying to resolve uncertainties. It failed. You can have a lot of those costs. And that's one of the things. That's where you're taking that risk. And HMRC like to see that you're taking that risk. And a failure almost demonstrates that it was a genuine risk.
And you said earlier on you can backdate it 2 years, so I suppose those that are depressed that it's been a failure can at least claim some tax relief from it. So it might
absolutely. There's always a silver lining somewhere.
Kick on and try it and try again. How many times can you claim? Is it can you only claim once per once per idea, or can you do lots of claims for different ideas? Is it unlimited?
Aisha, you're heavily involved in the claims process. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so there's no limit on the amount of projects you can be claiming on each year, or the expenditure either. So it's really limitless. Obviously, it would need to be genuine R&D, but as long as that's met, then there's no limit at all. No. So yeah, it's fairly generous, really. Okay,
well, it seems we want it. Why don't we go on to the eligibility criteria? And I really like the real life examples and the farming examples that are coming out as well now. So yeah, if we can keep relating back to that, that would be great. So yes, the eligibility criteria. So what are the categories that classify for agricultural R&D tax relief? And can you give examples of the current claims that you are working on in that respect? So yeah, so what can people claim for? Or sorry, within the claim, you've got an idea. What can they claim for? How do they claim it? What's the eligibility criteria, please, Aisha? Small question.
Yeah, so if I talk about it kind of general R&D purposes, and Catherine can chime in with the agricultural side of things. So you can claim for staff costs for those who directly worked on the project, and indirectly as well. So indirectly, they might be having to undertake some training to enable some employees to undertake the R&D. That can be included as well. That includes gross salaries, employers' national insurance, and employers' pension as well.
Right.
So that's handy to know. If you subcontracted any of your R&D activities, we can include 65% of that as well. So like the nutritionist, for example. Mm-hmm. And any staff that you've kind of got in from a third party, so it might be a recruiter, they would qualify as what's called an externally provided worker. You might bring them in to help with a specific part of a project. So you can claim 65% of that. You can also claim for things like light, heat, power and water, up to the amount, kind of a percentage that was used within the R&D, and any materials that were transformed as part of the R&D and not sellable in their original form afterwards. So it might be something that you scrap, like the drill example, for example. That would be something you could claim as a material.
It's quite a large area that you can claim for, in fact, isn't there? And
yeah.
I suspect then you've seen some quite large claims go in, and you can so we've got staff. So just to say that, so staff costs, subcontractors, externally provided work. So that's temporary staff, materials, light, heat, and power. So there's a real incentive there, I think, for people to look at that research and development and claim back on it. And were you saying, Aisha, that you can claim percentages of that? So
yeah, so you kind of claim a sensible percentage. So you have staff that work on a project. Obviously, the total amount of time they could spend is 100%. You might have some staff that are purely R&D, and therefore you claim that much. But otherwise, you'd allocate a sensible percentage based on the work that they've been doing. It might be 10%, might be 50%. Really varies depending on what activities they're doing.
And how do you work that out then? Does the farmer that's doing the research and development, is this where they bring in the professional like yourselves to then say, well, this is exactly what we can claim, when we can claim it, and how we can claim it? Because it sounds quite technical and quite difficult if I was just the farmer trying to claim myself.
Yeah, I think we would always look to explain everything fully to the farmer and work through those calculations with them. So we take off as much as the kind of doing, as it were, just to enable them to really concentrate on the kind of important bits of the business, and we can focus on helping them pull together all the numbers and everything like that.
You got any good examples, real life examples, Catherine, for the agricultural side of things?
I mean, we've seen some really strong examples, particularly on the poultry side. We tend to find that poultry businesses, they'll have very high feed costs, and where they may be trialling some new ideas, new techniques, particularly if as a consequence of R&D, we find that they're losing some of the mortality rates go up. Potentially we can have a percentage of the feed costs that relate to the failures that they're suffering as a result of the R&D. And you find that, you know, if you start with a large number, even a small percentage is still going to come to a large number that you can use to offset. So, you know, it might be that if your feed cost is £500,000, and you decide that you're going to offset 10%, well, that's £50,000 that you can claim on. And that, you know, just that alone would result in a £12,500 tax refund. And so, you know, and there would be so much other stuff that we could look at claiming, a proportion of lighter heat, and, you know, as well as any subcontractors' costs if you've had your nutritionist involved, and stuff like that. We have seen, you know, it's not unusual to see claims in sort of tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of pounds going in. It really comes down to working with our clients and identifying those projects, and then talking through and finding all the costs that are associated with those projects. And one thing the revenue do like to see is actually, you know, something that is a very strong project, with a very definite uncertainty that you're trying to resolve, as opposed to just trying to improve our farming activity. And so when you're actually doing something, being able to sort of define it quite clearly is really important. And also, you know, being able to demonstrate that you're measuring your outcomes and recording those outcomes is really important to demonstrate that you're undertaking it with a degree of seriousness. Because, you know, how can you tell if something has worked if you're not measuring it properly? So doing all those sorts of things is really important. Now, I know that so many businesses, you look at the dairy industry, they're monitoring the product, the outcome continuously. They're looking at their butter fat content, they're looking at yields, always looking and testing and recording. And so that setup is already there. So that makes it very easy to demonstrate that someone is undertaking these matters very seriously. And it's just pinpointing exactly what the project is and getting a claim in.
So it looks like there is incentive for somebody that's running a farm to look at their enterprise and say, you know, we are doing research and development, we are developing our farm in different areas in different ways. We qualify for research and development tax relief. And hopefully promoting it in these ways will get people to start thinking about that. And it sounds as if, you know, you can have a go, and if you fail, if it doesn't work, then you will get something back for trying. And thanks to the government for actually giving us the capacity to be able to do that, I guess, if that's what they're trying to do. Isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, it's interesting times right now, let's face it. You know, this is all of us sitting at home doing our work, but it has led to a lot of innovation. People are looking at diversifying their businesses, trying new things. I know that issues surrounding delivery and where people had a market for their product has led to some great innovation. I was speaking with one client. Now, I think he's been looking at this for some time now, but he's looking at making mayonnaise from his poultry business, and the eggs that are being produced. Now, you know, there's differences that he's got in his business and the type of mayonnaise he's trying to make than any other mayonnaise out there, and we're looking at putting in a claim for him. But, you know, all the different projects, and I know farmers do like to trial sort of diversifications because the more avenues of income you've got, the stronger the base is for your business. One bit might be up, another bit might be down, and that's something that we do see quite a lot of. So it's very interesting times, and people who are trialing new stuff to enhance their business are getting that government support now. It's about talking to somebody who knows what they're doing to get a claim together.
Aisha, just on, is there other tax relief that you can claim, or you were talking before about capital allowances?
Yeah, so if you've used up all of your annual investment allowance, which is a kind of 100% deduction in a year on machinery and things like that you've bought.
That's when you purchase machinery and you can get an allowance to not pay tax on it.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. If you've used up all of your annual investment allowance in the year and you've bought machinery that you're going to use in the R&D, or potentially you've bought a lab or some element of a building that you're going to undertake the R&D in, you can claim an additional amount. Even if you've used up all of your annual investment allowance, you can claim for that as well. A kind of an extension to the annual investment allowance, if you like.
Yeah. And a couple of questions. Can I claim if we're not paying corporation tax? Now this obviously, at the very beginning we were saying this is relating to limited companies. Limited companies be those that pay corporation tax. So can they still claim if they're not paying corporation tax, or indeed if they're making a loss?
Yeah, so if you're making losses, you can actually still claim. You'll get a percentage back, which is slightly less generous. You get a total relief of 33p in the pound, and you actually get that straight back into your bank as cash. So yeah, that can be really helpful, especially with companies that are making losses.
And just confirm that then, because that's another question that we had, is how the relief is paid. So is it cash in the bank, or is the relief added to the company accounts to offset future profits?
You can choose how you'd like to do it, really. If you would like the money, if you like the money back, you can have that. If you want to carry it forward to offset in the future, you can do that. Whether it's paid to your bank or not will depend whether you've already paid your corporation tax for the year. If you have, then it will go back into your bank, and if you haven't, it will just get deducted off the liability that you need to pay instead. So it depends.
Okay, fine. So I am a limited farming agricultural business limited company. I know I've got this research and development. I've spoken to you guys, and you think I've got eligibility to claim as well. What is the process for claiming? Do you want to just talk us through that? What might someone expect if they want to go ahead and claim back?
Yeah, so once we've undertaken the initial meeting just to establish where the projects are, where the boundaries lie, we'd organise another meeting with what you'd call the competent professionals, so those that are actually working on the project, undertaking the R&D, and in that meeting we would draft the narrative for them, which is the report that you submit to HMRC, which will include details of everything you've been doing and kind of hit all the points that HMRC want to know about in order to see that you've actually concluded it is R&D. So we'll pull all that together for them, so they don't have to type up anything. And then we would also help them pull together their expenditure as well, and kind of question that and get the maximum relief that is due to them, and submit it on their behalf. So I think timing wise, it should only take between 6 to 8 hours of their time end to end. Okay,
so the idea is they have a professional that helps them. Professional does all that work while that they get to concentrate on doing the actual development.
Yeah, exactly.
But you should take into account you're going to be taking about 6 hours with regards to discussions with you, providing the information. But that seems really, I mean, 6 hours is pretty. Not very much at all compared to the amount of claiming you're going to be getting back, and I guess that's where the advantage of having the professional come in and help alongside that side of things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people, if you're doing it yourself, it can take up a lot of time, especially if you don't know about R&D. It can take a lot of time up. So that's why we try to make it as efficient as possible for the farmer.
I bet that's quite. I suspect, knowing you, Catherine, that initial conversation about what is research and development and sitting down with the client, that's probably quite, you get quite motivated by that, don't you? Isn't that quite an interesting conversation?
Oh, I find that's my favourite bit, to be honest, is talking through what everybody's actually doing, and understanding, exactly, what they're doing in their business, what they're trialing, what they're improving. We've seen a lot of development as far as kind of drone technology. That's one area that we're seeing quite a lot in. And there's an awful lot about robotics as well. People are trialing robotics in different ways. Now, just buying some form of robotic scraper for your dairy isn't in itself R&D, but then other people are trialing use of them in slightly different ways and stuff like that. It's fascinating. I remember, now this is going back a few years, but the first time I went out and saw a dairy with a flood wash system, I was blown away. I was very excited. And there's an awful lot of development going on out there, and just understanding what people are doing. And I do find that farmers are very resourceful, very innovative, but because that's just the way they've been brought up, and they think that everyone is the same as them. And to be honest, they're all very innovative. They're all doing something a bit different. They're all trying to push those boundaries. They just see that as good agricultural practice. But the reality is, when I can talk to them, and usually Aisha and I will have a meeting together with the client, and we identify that what they think is just good agricultural practice can actually result in a really strong R&D claim. It's very rewarding.
I expect it's nice for the farmer as well, just to have someone to chat about what they're doing on the farm, particularly pushing the boundaries of farming as well.
Yeah, and we're seeing quite a few of these, and it's what we see with one farmer might be something that another farmer is testing as well, coming at it from a different angle, and there's always the opportunity to put farmers in contact with one another if we think there could be a benefit, and they want to share knowledge as well. So sort of having those discussions with farmers and really getting to the bottom and understanding their business and understanding what they're doing, ultimately it goes to the heart of what we at Old Mill are about, where we have that really good in-depth knowledge of our clients and what they're doing, and can really help, hopefully.
Okay, a couple more just questions on process, Aisha. So one here, how quick do you hear back from the HMRC to know if you are successful with the claim?
It's hard to give a hard and fast answer with that. I think once you submit the claim, they will look at a lot of them before they pay anything out, and their payment timing at the moment is only 28 days. They're trying to do it quickly because of COVID, but usually it's not too far off that anyway. That's not to say that they won't look into it. They're not going to look at every single one at that point. So there is an inquiry window of 12 months from the date that you submit it. So they can look at it any time up to 12 months from the date you submitted it, essentially. But most of them they'll look at before they pay out, but I can't say for sure that they have looked at it. So
just to understand there then, if you put a claim in, you should expect to get something within the claim back, or the money, within 24 days, but there is 28 days, but then there is this inquiry window that can last 12 months, even if you've received the money, whereby that gives them the time to look at it. Now, after 12 months, I know you were talking before, Catherine, about lots of claims going in now. Is HMRC going to look at the viability of these claims again? Do you have to be very careful with what you claim, and even after that 12 months inquiry window, would there potentially come back on that? I know we're very robust where we are as Old Mill and what we put in and what we don't, but obviously there might be claims out there that aren't so robust.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is a concern. I mean, as you say, that's why we make sure we put in really robust claims where we have all of the analysis of costs, to make sure that we are comfortable that the claim is strong and will hold up to revenue scrutiny. The official window is that 12-month period, but if HMRC feel that you haven't fully disclosed something, or you have claimed something that was just wrong, and it only comes to their attention after that 12-month window, they have got the ability to open a discovery assessment. And they will have 5, I think, I'll check with Aisha, but I think generally it's 5 years for a discovery assessment where something comes to light that you didn't fully disclose at the time. And potentially, if it's a fraudulent claim and you have committed fraud in any way, potentially they've got 20 years. And so, yeah, worst case scenario, we clearly will not be putting in fraudulent claims for our clients, but it's just, there's a lot of people that think, oh, well, HMRC must be very, very busy with all of these claims. Maybe some might sneak under the radar. Well, you know what? They have a very long tail, and it can come back to bite very easily. And not only that, with the penalties that HMRC would charge, it's just not something that should be done.
Yeah, and that's why I spend so much time kind of getting to know the business and talking to those competent professionals, because you can't put something generic in and feel safe with it. You need to have all the detail there.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the advantage again of having that agricultural background. I think we find that in the company, whether it's our accounts, whether it's R&D, our services, that rural background, that we understand what we're submitting or what we're claiming, or talking about with the client. It's always been a benefit, and never more so, I expect, with this sort of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good point to almost end on, I would say. So I suppose let's just sum this up. It seems very much that there is opportunity out there for limited agricultural companies to have a look at their enterprise, to see if there's something that they are developing, to have conversations with professionals such as yourselves. And then there's opportunity to claim, but it also sounds as if it's quite a minefield, and there's a lot of technical info that they have to provide. And I think we advise, as we always do, is always, if you're going to do something of this nature, seek advice, ask the professional, at least have a conversation, and where you're at before investing time, money, and your efforts into it. Any other good points to note before we close off?
I don't think so. And I think it is just have a conversation, pick up the phone and have the conversation, and just see, even if you're not sure, we can quite quickly identify if there is a valid claim there or not. And so, we're very happy to talk to any of our clients about their businesses. I'm always interested to hear what everybody's doing. And so, hopefully we're not scary. Hopefully we're pretty approachable people. And we'd be delighted to hear from anyone and just explore whether there's anything there for them.
I think that's always been one of the advantages of Old Mill, isn't it? We're always there at the end of the phone to be able to help and be able just to have a chat, and that sometimes is all that is needed.
Absolutely. And Aisha and I are very happy to have those conversations. If you want to go through your usual Old Mill advisor, if you're already an existing client, you're very welcome to do that, or come directly to me or Aisha if you're not.
Great. Catherine, thank you very much. Aisha, I hope it wasn't too scary for you.
No.
Very constant professional, and you've been doing this for years, so thank you very much for imparting your wisdom on us.
Thank you.
As Catherine said, we are available to talk if anyone wants to talk more about this and about if there's the opportunity for you to claim. Catherine's and Aisha's details are up on the screen now. There's also an article online on the website about agricultural R&D, which you can find on there, but otherwise do by all means just drop us a line. We can send you details about R&D, or if you have questions then we are here to help. And I think that is the end of the session. So again, Catherine, thank you very much. Aisha, thank you very much. And this has been recorded and will be up on the website on Monday. Again, have a great day and enjoy the rest of the day farming. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.